Want 10% off your MTG singles? Go to Flipside Gaming and enter the promo code POWER in all caps to receive 10% off $10 or more. Want to see extra videos? Sign up to our Patreon and get access to our Discord, early access to videos, Patreon-only videos, and much more. Need a better life tracker? Download the Gauntlet app for your phone. It keeps track of your life totals, counters, win rate, and so much more. It's free, so go check it out. More info is in the description. Thanks for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Playing with Power MTG, where we play with the most powerful cards in the most powerful formats. Theros Beyond Death is here. There were a lot of really awesome cards and legendaries in this set, so we took some of the new legendaries and did our best to make them as competitive as possible. A quick thanks to all of our Patreons for their support. We really could not do this without you. If you'd like to become a patron, please check out the link in the description below and check out some of the perks our patrons get. You can also show your support by liking this video and subscribing to our channel if you're not already a subscriber. It really helps out a lot. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Ryan, piloting Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Ryan brewed this deck as a Flash Hulk list, using multiple Flash Hulk lines such as Sigil Tracer, Spellseeker, and Vigian Graft Mage Incubation Druid. Ryan's opening hand contains an island, copy artifact, flooded strand, force of negation, mystic remora, waterlogged grove, and a soul ring. Next, we have Folger, piloting Siona, captain of the Pyleas. Folger brewed this deck as an adaptive deck using hate bears and control elements combined with the infinite combo out of Siona plus Shielded by Faith. Folger's opening hand contains a Smothering Tithe, Heliod's Pilgrim, Earthcraft, Hushbringer, Avacyn's Pilgrim, Marsh Flats, and a forest. After that, we have Mike, piloting Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger. Mike brewed this deck as a World Gorger combo deck using the dragon plus reanimation auras. He also has backup lines of Dockside Extortionist plus Corpse Dance and a hand stack sub-theme. Mike's opening hand contains a Toxic Deluge, Swamp, Arid Mesa, Prismatic Vista, Praetor's Grasp, Wooded Foothills, and a Gemstone Caverns. Finally, we have Garrett, piloting Atris, Oracle of Half-Truths. Garrett brewed this deck as a consultation/control deck, leveraging his commander as a card advantage outlet while digging for his win cons. Garrett's opening hand contains a Brainstorm, Pact of Negation, Ponder, Mox Opal, Tainted Pact, Exotic Orchard, and a Blast Zone. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Ryan wins the Eat It or Wear It challenge and gets to start us off. But Mike has a pre-game action and puts Gemstone Caverns onto the battlefield, exiling an Arid Mesa. Ryan plays an island for turn. He casts the best and worst turn 1 play, Mystic Remora. Everyone else loathes this play, and Ryan passes the turn. Folger plays a forest for turn. He casts an Avacyn's Pilgrim. He ends his turn. Mike plays a swamp for turn. He casts his commander, Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger. Kroxa enters, and everyone discards a card. Ryan discarded a land card and loses 3 life. Then Kroxa is sacrificed, and Mike elects to put him back into the command zone. All through, Mike passes. Garrett plays an Exotic Orchard for turn. He tells everyone he is not going to feed the fish this game, so he passes the turn to Ryan. During Ryan's upkeep, he pays for his Mystic Remora. He plays a Flooded Strand for turn. He cracks it for a Tropical Island. He casts a Soul Ring. He ships the turn to Folger. Folger plays a Marsh Flats for turn. He cracks it for a Temple Garden into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts his commander, Siona, captain of the Pyleas. Siona enters, Folger looks at the top 7, and doesn't find any auras, putting them onto the bottom of his library. Dismayed at the whiff, he passes. Mike plays a Prismatic Vista for turn. He cracks it for a swamp. He casts Praetor's Grasp, targeting Garrett. In response, Garrett casts Brainstorm, drawing 3 and putting 2 back on top. Grasp resolves, and Mike searches up a card from Garrett's library into exile. All through, he ends his turn. Garrett tells everyone that now he must feed the fish. Everyone pleads with him not to do it, but to no avail. Garrett plays a Prismatic Vista for turn. He cracks it for a snow-covered swamp. He casts a Lotus Petal, triggering Mystic Remora. He cracks his Lotus Petal to play a Soul Ring, triggering Mystic Remora again. Everyone tells him to stop, and Garrett decides to take that advice. He does nothing else and ends his turn. During Ryan's upkeep, he pays for his Mystic Remora. He plays a Yavimaya Coast. He casts a Copy Artifact. Copy Artifact resolves, and Ryan has it enter as a copy of Sol Ring. He then taps his newly acquired Sol Ring to cast Rhystic Study. The table groans heavily, knowing what is about to take place, and Ryan passes the turn. Folger starts off by casting Fauna Shaman, paying for Rhystic Study. He attacks Garrett with Siona. Folger passes. Mike plays a Command Tower for turn. He then casts what he tutored with Praetor's Grasp, which was a Necropotence. He pays 12 life into Necropotence. He casts a Mana Crypt. He moves to his end step, puts the cards into his hand, and then discards down to hand size, exiling the discarded cards. Garrett plays a Mana Confluence for turn. He casts his commander, Atris, God of Half-Truths. Atris triggers, and Garrett chooses Mike. Mike looks at the top three and puts them into two piles. The first is a face-down pile of 2 cards, and the other is a face-up pile containing Narset, Parter of Veils. Garrett chooses the face-down pile. He casts a Chrome Mox, exiling Preordained. All through, Garrett ends his turn. During his upkeep, Ryan pays for his Mystic Remora. He plays a Mana Confluence for turn. He casts a Mana Vault. He then casts Survival of the Fittest. All finished up, Ryan passes. At the end of Ryan's turn, Garrett casts Chain of Vapor, targeting his own Atris. Chain resolves, Atris bounces, and Garrett sacks a land, copying Chain, targeting his own Necropotence on Mike's board. In response, Mike pays 5 life into Necro, exiling the top 5 cards of his library. Necro bounces, and Mike chooses not to continue the chain. Then the turn passes to Folger. Folger plays a Verdant Catacombs for turn. He cracks it for a forest. Knowing that Mystic and Rhystic are already out of hand, he needs to recruit that he's behind. So, he casts Smothering Tide, not paying for Mystic or Rhystic. All through, and feeling bad about himself, Folger shifts the turn to Mike. During Mike's upkeep, he loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. In his main phase, knowing Ryan is pretty much set up to win, he casts Duress, targeting Ryan. Ryan, knowing full well what Mike will choose for him to discard if this resolves, pays 2 life and casts Mental Misstep, countering the Duress. Mike plays a Swamp for turn. He casts Buried Alive, paying for the Rhystic but not the Mystic. Buried Alive resolves, and Mike fetches up a World Gorger Dragon, Sire of Insanity, and a Dockside Extortionist into his graveyard. He moves to his end step and puts the Necro cards into his hand and discards down to hand size. Garrett plays a Polluted Delta for turn. He recasts his commander, Atris. He chooses Folger, and they bargain with each other, saying that they need to band together to stop Ryan's inevitable win. Folger separates the top 3 cards into 2 piles. One face-down pile with 2 cards, and one face-up pile containing a Spell Pierce. Folger points to the face-up pile, telling Garrett to pick that one. Garrett chooses the face-down pile, thinking Folger is trying to trick him. Unfortunately, Folger wasn't trying to trick him, and he got the pile without interaction. All finish up, Garrett passes to Ryan. At the end of Garrett's turn, Ryan activates Survival of the Fittest, discarding an Incubation Druid. He holds priority and pays 2 life and casts Noxious Revival, targeting his own Incubation Druid in his graveyard. Noxious Revival resolves, and Ryan puts Incubation Druid onto the top of his library. Then Survival of the Fittest resolves, and Ryan fetches up a Protean Hulk into his hand. Still in Garrett's end step, Ryan taps his Yavimaya Coast to cast Flash. In response, Garrett cracks his Polluted Delta for an Underground Sea. He then casts Tainted Pact, looking for an answer. In response, Ryan casts Force of Negation, exiling a blue card from his hand. Force resolves, countering Tainted Pact. Folger then responds by activating Fauna Shaman, discarding Night of Autumn, and fetching up an Aven Mind Sensor into his hand. He then flashes in Aven Mind Sensor. Ryan responds by casting Pact of Negation, countering Aven Mind Sensor. With no other answers, Flash resolves, and Ryan puts Protean Hulk onto the battlefield. He neglects to pay its cost, allowing it to die and triggering its ability. Ryan then fetches up a Vigilant Graph Mage, Incubation Druid, and a Sylvan Safekeeper. Vigilant Graph Mage's Graft ability triggers, and he moves a +1/+1 counter from it to Incubation Druid. Then Ryan moves to his turn. During Ryan's upkeep, he pays for his fish and his Pact of Negation with his infinite mana through the Incubation Graph Mage combo. In his main phase, he generates infinite mana and uses that mana to cast his commander repeatedly, drawing a card, gaining 3 life, putting lands into play, and letting his commander go back to the command zone, and paying for Smothering Tithe with each iteration. He uses this loop to draw his entire deck, and then plays Thassa's Oracle, triggering her ETB and winning the game. You know what? I think the rest of the group deserves a rematch. So let's do exactly that. In this game, Garrett brings back Atris. His opening hand contains a Plunge into Darkness, Cursed Totem, Island, Serum Visions, City of Brass, Lotus Petal, and a Misty Rainforest. Next, we have Ryan, bringing back Uro. His opening hand contains a Pact of Negation, Polluted Delta, Sleight of Hand, Island, Pongify, Arcane Signet, and an Oko, Thief of Crowns. After that, we have Mike, bringing back Kroxa. His opening hand contains a Magus of the Moon, Pyroclasm, Buried Alive, Azra Oddsmaker, Mana Confluence, and a Blood Crypt. Finally, we have Folger, bringing back Siona. His opening hand contains an Elvish Mystic, Crop Rotation, Yisan the Wanderer Bard, Skull Clamp, Noxious Revival, Horizon Canopy, and a Command Tower. And Garrett starts us off. Garrett plays an island for turn. He casts a Lotus Petal. He ends his turn. Ryan also plays an island for turn. He casts a Sleight of Hand. He looks at the top two, grabs one, bottoms the other, and passes the turn. Folger plays a Command Tower for turn. He casts an Elvish Mystic. He passes. Mike plays a Blood Crypt, into play tapped. He passes as well. At the end of Mike's turn, Garrett casts Opt, scrying one and drawing a card. Garrett plays a Gaia Reach Sanitarium for turn. He casts a Cursed Totem. Folger looks sadly at his Mana Dork, and the totem resolves. Garrett passes. Ryan plays a Polluted Delta for turn. He cracks it for a Tropical Island. He casts an Arcane Signet. He gives the turn to Folger. Folger plays a Flooded Strand for turn. He casts a Skull Clamp. He passes. Mike plays a Marsh Flats for turn. He cracks it for a Swamp. He casts a Cabal Ritual. He generates 3 black and sinks it into Buried Alive. He fetches up a Blood Pet, Sire of Insanity, and a World Gorger Dragon, all into his graveyard. The table goes into full alert, and Mike passes the turn. Garrett plays a City of Brass for turn. He casts a Serum Vision, drawing a card and scrying 2. Garrett gives the turn to Ryan. On his turn, Ryan casts a Talisman of Curiosity. He gives the turn to Folger. At the end of Ryan's turn, Folger cracks his Flooded Strand for a Temple Garden, into play tapped. Folger plays a Horizon Canopy for turn. He taps his Canopy to cast Wild Growth on his Command Tower. He casts his commander, Siona. Siona triggers, and Folger looks at the top 7. Unfortunately, he doesn't find anything for the second time tonight, and puts them on the bottom. He attacks Mike with his Elvish Mystic, and passes the turn. Mike plays a Swamp for turn. He casts a Magus of the Moon. In response, Garrett casts Mana Drain, countering the Magus. All through, Mike passes. Garrett plays a Prismatic Vista for turn. He cracks it for a Swamp. He casts his commander, Atris. He chooses Mike, and Mike looks at the top 3. He separates them into 2 piles. One face down pile with 2 cards, and one face up pile with Echo of Eons. Garrett chooses the face down pile. Garrett taps the City of Brass to cast Frantic Search. He draws 2, discards 2, and untaps 3 lands. He casts everyone's favorite card, Mystic Remora. He follows up with a Mana Crypt. He taps the City of Brass again to flashback Echo of Eons from his graveyard. Ryan thinks very hard about whether or not he wants to counter this, because he really likes his hand. He decides to let it resolve. Everyone shuffles their hands and graveyards into their library. Mike sighs because he has to shuffle away his World Gorger, and everyone draws a new hand of 7. Garrett pays 2 life and casts Jataxian Probe, targeting Ryan. He looks at Ryan's hand and draws a card. Finally finished up, he passes the turn. Ryan plays an Ancient Tomb for turn. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast his commander, Uro. Uro triggers, Ryan draws a card, gains 3 life, and then puts a Yavimaya Coast into play. He then sacks Uro and puts it back into the command zone. Ryan casts a Mana Crypt. He taps his Yavimaya Coast to cast his commander again. Uro triggers again, Ryan draws a card, gains 3 life, and then puts a Hinterland Harbor into play. Then Uro goes back into the command zone. Everyone definitely starts to see the value of this commander, and Ryan gives the turn over to Folger. Folger plays a Forest for turn. He casts Knight of Autumn. Knight triggers, and Folger blows up Garrett's Cursed Totem. Folger then follows up by casting his favorite card, Tanglewire. He attacks Mike with Siona and passes the turn. During his upkeep, Mike taps for Tanglewire. He plays a Luxury Suite for turn and passes. During his upkeep, Garrett pays for his Remora. Also in his upkeep, he taps for Tanglewire, taking the damage off of his City of Brass. He plays a Watery Grave into play untapped, paying 2 life. He passes the turn. At the end of Garrett's turn, Ryan casts Chain of Vapor, targeting Folger's Tanglewire. Tanglewire bounces, Folger chooses not to continue the chain, and Garrett moves to discard. Then Ryan's turn begins. Ryan taps his Ancient Tomb to cast Euro for the 3rd time. He draws a card, gains 3 life, and puts a Dryad Arbor into play. He casts a Birds of Paradise and gives the turn to Folger. Folger starts off his turn by attacking Mike for 4. He plays a Plains for turn. He then casts Smothering Tithe. Garrett responds by casting Delay. Smothering Tithe gets exiled with 3 time counters on it. He casts an Arbor Elf. He equips Skull Clamp onto Knight of Autumn, killing it and drawing 2 cards. Finished up, he passes. Mike plays a Swamp for turn. He casts Rolling Earthquake, where X equals 2, wiping the board. He casts a Demonic Tutor. He fetches up a card into his hand and then passes the turn. Garrett plays an Underground River for turn. He casts Tainted Pact. Ryan responds by casting Dispel, targeting Pact. Garrett responds by casting Spell Pierce, countering Dispel. Tainted Pact resolves, and Garrett exiles his entire library. He casts Thassa's Oracle, triggering her ATB and winning the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what a fun set of games. The Theros commanders admittedly didn't look all that powerful at first glance, but when we started playing games with them, they proved to be a lot stronger than we had anticipated. Kroxa and Euro were really powerful as infinite mana outlets, giving you the ability to win the game right from the command zone. What really took us by surprise was Atris. We thought this card was average at best, but this card really proved to be one of the most powerful cards that night overall. Siona and Heliod, which wasn't shown tonight but we played with, are fun commanders, but just didn't quite make the CEDH cut for us. We brewed them to be as powerful as possible, but unfortunately, the other commanders just outshined them. Ryan's deck had the ability to always sink mana into his commander and gain advantage on the board, which is a really great ability in multiple points in the game. His ability to keep control and get ahead on board made this a really fun deck to pilot. Folger's deck didn't deliver like he wanted, and whiffing on his commander's ability both games was really a setback for him. He had good synergy with his cards, but his lack of stack interaction left him in a really reactionary position most of the games. Mike got some decent plays in, and the Praetor's Grasp for Necro was a great proactive play in the first game. Unfortunately, his overall strategy didn't prove to be formidable at the table. Garrett's deck was definitely doing what he wanted it to do, and it was definitely keeping up with Ryan's deck. It was able to control the board and win the second game. The most powerful card goes to Thassa's Oracle. Both decks ran them in tonight's game, and both decks won with this win con. There's a lot of stir in the community about this card, and it'll be interesting to see what happens when the dust settles. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode, and our Season 3 lineup. Don't worry, Season 4 starts next week. Stay tuned for a really cool Season 4 premiere where we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.